About 13% of children in mainstream schools were overweight in 2017. That's up from 11% in 2011. And about 6 in 10 Singaporeans, well, they eat more calories daily than what's recommended. Now, those are the latest figures from the Health Ministry.
Experts say that an unhealthy body weight in childhood is likely to persist and progress later in life, leading to an increased risk of conditions such as diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and even amputations. Now, for more insight on this, we're joined by Trina Liang Lin, CEO of Halo Health Asia, a social enterprise that aims to help people make better food decisions at different stages of life. Firstly, Trina, tell us what prompted you to get into the food business and why nutrition is so important.
Well, it started with a bit of a health scare first and a rejection. So I had a bit of a health scare and I started reading books, and I wanted to know a lot more about food and nutrition. And I also wanted to talk to experts to really understand what was going on. So I wanted to go to some conferences, and you realize very quickly that unless you are an academic or you have a business or B2B, you're actually not allowed in these conferences. So I really felt that the voice of the consumer needed to be heard at these conferences, to ask questions, to be able to get businesses to relate to what the consumer was doing. So I aim to start this conference to sort of pivot the narrative, to really focus and centralize the consumer in the midst of all these conversations between businesses, between investors, between policymakers, scientists, academics. So to me, it was just really important to get the consumer right there in the center of it all.
Food is such an important topic for Singaporeans, and it has been for a long time. But the ironic thing is, we import so much of it, but we want to get to this point where we have food security. Singapore's moving to at least securing 30% of that. We just produce 10% now, but by 2030, we're hoping to get to that number. How feasible is it, though?
You know, during the conference, World Food Future, some of us were talking about this because Dr. Amy Khor, our guest of honor, was saying, 30% by 2030. And some were saying, oh my gosh, that's really aspirational. Do you think that could work? But I really think that with Singapore's determination, with the whole country sort of working together, with the resources and technology, it's probably quite likely that we're going to hit that target. I mean, don't forget, like 40 years ago, we were self-sufficient in eggs and in pork. And I think that that is possible with, vertical farming, with the use of lab tech research in meat. I think all this is possible in the next, 11 years. We do have 11 years.
Yeah. It's going to fly by, I can assure you of that. How accessible, though, is good nutrition at the moment? We hear a lot of it talk like cost can sometimes be a barrier to people eating healthy and eating well.
Yeah. So I think that good nutrition is accessible in the sense that you can go out and get it. Affordability was an issue from, say, 5 years ago, when meatless meat cost about $5,000 a kilogram. And you've seen that cost go down quite rapidly to about $7 a burger on Redmart now. So when you talk about affordability, I think that is just going to improve and improve over time. And I think it's very important, even as you talk about affordability, to inform consumers of choices. What are you actually really buying when you're talking about meatless meat? I think that conversation and back to the consumer is just so important.
And there's no better time to start that conversation about food choices than when you're a kid, right? From parent to child.
Yes.
And as parents, we do like to have those conversations, but it doesn't happen all the time, not even in schools. We understand that Halo Health has kick-started Food Steps. That's a program, a free food nutrition program. Tell us more about that.
That's right. So the conference net proceeds go toward Food Steps, which is going to be rolled out to schools from April, the end of April. It's a free school nutrition education program. We want to enliven the classroom with kids talking about food, get them to expand their taste buds, and also throw in an Asian twist to it all as well. So we're really looking forward to jumpstart that process.
And a lot of it, when it comes to food and healthy eating, is habits. What do you sort of habitually go back to? Is there a way to cultivate better habits in food? Because, you only have to go to any school in Singapore, and outside the front gate, quite often you'll see someone selling sweet treats and ice creams and things like that, and those are, very appealing.
Yes. So I think one of the things that we learned in the conference is that right from the start, when kids are young, to expand their universe of taste. So start them with sour, start them with bitter, and not just go to sweet and salty as the first taste that they enjoy. So that was an interesting...
So you're talking infants then at that point?
Yes, exactly, okay. Yeah. One of the speakers was saying, you know, start babies with bitter and sour instead of sweet and salty. I was like, wow.
Give them a lemon to begin with. Yeah. It's always a hit on YouTube or Instagram, isn't it, to see the face of a baby that's taking a bite out of a lemon. But it's interesting because going back to what Steve said, we have these psychological associations with food from very young, and they're also associated with events. So it may not just be even what the food tastes like, but the event that you're celebrating as well. So families really do have a good chance to sort of change the conversation or get the rewiring done. But what has the response been from the kids? You know, I'm curious, what do they say when they're told about good nutrition?
I think, you know, it depends on their age. I think when they're older, they seem to be much more open about it, to experience new things. When they're younger, I find that they still tend to want to stick with the sweet, they still want to stick with the salty. So I think hopefully with the nutrition education program, we're going to change that.
Yeah, well, we're hoping you get to the point where kids can celebrate over a basket of kale and carrots, and that not over a cake. Thank you so much, Trina, for coming in to share that with us. We've been speaking there to Trina Liang Lin. She's CEO of Halo Health Asia.